If you truly are working and looking for the good of the Palestinian people, you have a responsibility not just to shout slogans, not just to yell epithets like from the river to the sea. You have a responsibility to understand the reality of the facts on the ground. In the wake of October the 7th, the massacre of innocent Israelis, civilians by Hamas, there has been a cry heard around the world that it's time for the creation of a Palestinian state. You've heard for the call for a two-state solution. And the talking heads, the governmental leaders around the world have not wasted any time in calling for the creation of a Palestinian state. I'd like to pose a question to us. I'd love your comments in the comment section. And the question is this. In this proposed Palestinian state, my sincere question is, who should lead it? Who should lead the proposed new Palestinian state? Let's take a look at some of the facts on the ground that we're dealing with in the Palestinian territories. First of all, we have the party known as Fatah, which is based in Ramallah and which is headed by Mahmoud Abbas. Mahmoud Abbas has been in power there, I think, for something like 14, 15, 16 years. They've stopped even any pretense of election. Mahmoud Abbas is supposedly the more moderate of the leaders in the area. But the reality is that Fatah has not been able to in any way govern effectively in the Palestinian territories. They are seen as corrupt, billions of dollars of aid going in for a population that's not so huge. We're talking about 4 million, 5 million Palestinians in the West Bank, Judea, Samaria, and in Gaza. And so there's no trust for Fatah led by Abbas. And this is part of the reason that we saw the rise of Hamas. Now, we need to understand this. Hamas was elected by the Palestinians in Gaza. So when we look and we talk about the innocent Palestinian population in Gaza, we need to take a closer, granular look at the reality of what's going on in Gaza. Why? Because the international community has failed the Palestinian people. The international community has miserably failed the Palestinian community. They've poured in money, but they have not made that money accountable. And so the reality is that there has been massive radicalization of the Palestinian people through the money that has gone to Hamas and even in Fatah. When you go into these areas, schools are named after suicide bombers. Soccer stadiums are named after suicide bombers. When there is a suicide bomber or a martyr, a shaheed, their family is given an income for life. They are exalted as a hero among the people. And so we have now an incredibly well-funded Hamas operating an extensive social, welfare, educational infrastructure, indoctrinating young children. This is child abuse. This is the same kind of child abuse that Hitler enacted upon the Nazi youth. Hitler enacted the Nazi youth programs where even there's many recorded stories of young children who, if their parents were not in step with the Nazi regime, the Nazi children would report their parents to the SS, to the Gestapo, because Hitler had so indoctrinated the minds of the young. The objective of jihad, these young children learn, is to liberate Palestine from the river to the sea. This is a call for the extermination of the Jewish people. It's a call for the end of the Jewish democratic state of Israel. There is no call here for compromise. There is no call for a genuine two-state solution. There is a call for a state for the Palestinians and the return of the 5 million to the state of Israel. That's the end of the Jewish state of Israel. And so what we're dealing with is the fact that 72% of the Palestinians polled supported the October 7th Hamas attack against Israel. I'm going to say that unbelievable statistic again. 72% of Palestinians who were polled supported the October 7th Hamas attack against Israel. So this idea that has seeped into the brains of the West, that Hamas is a few hundred or maybe at most a couple thousand militants, and that we should just go through and somehow surgically identify them and remove them, and that the vast majority of the rest of the Palestinian population is disavowing this and standing against this, is not borne out by the facts. By the way, those statistics I just quoted were published in the Associated Press, NBC News, Reuters, and many, many others by reputable news sources. The tragedy that we are dealing with is that we have an entire generation of Palestinians, certainly not all of them. That is the heartbreak of this. That is the tragedy of this. Certainly not all of them, but many of them, far too many, have been radicalized because Iran keeps funding the infrastructure of Hamas. The West keeps propping up the useless Fatah, who is unable to rule. So I'm back to my opening question. You want to say a two-state solution. Who is going to lead Palestine? Hamas? Has Hamas proven themselves capable of leading a society? These barbarous, medieval murderers, rapists, sadists? Fatah, who is corrupt? I have the privilege of serving alongside a giant of the faith, a spiritual father named Bishop Tommy Reed. Bishop Reed was a personal acquaintance, I could say friend, of the Sadat family. Visited with them on several occasions. Egypt was at war with Israel. Egypt was one of the nations that attacked Israel the moment of her birth. But there rose up in Egypt a man named Anwar Sadat, a man who understood that while perhaps Egypt and Israel would never be best friends, that neither side was benefited by there being a constant state of war. And Anwar Sadat came to America with Menachem Begin and signed the peace treaty between Egypt and Israel. After Anwar Sadat was assassinated, his widow, Mrs. Sadat, came to Buffalo, New York to visit with Bishop Reed. They had dinner, and Bishop Reed asked Mrs. Sadat, "Tell me, what was it like the day your husband was murdered? What was that experience?" Mrs. Sadat told Bishop Reed, "Oh, we knew. My husband understood he would pay for that peace with his life. But he believed that the sacrifice of his life was worth the saving of countless other Egyptian and Israeli lives because peace would come." So the next time someone, university student, someone at work, someone on Facebook, the next time someone looks and says and raises the question, "Give the Palestinians a state tomorrow. We demand statehood for the Palestinians immediately," ask them this question: who will lead it? Who currently exists within any of the Palestinian territories who has the moral clarity, who has the courage, and who has the support of the people to lead the Palestinian people towards a future they deserve. I pray for the peace and prosperity of the Palestinian people. My heart breaks that a generation of them have been brainwashed, absolutely brainwashed and radicalized, because the West has not had accountability on where this money goes and how this money is spent. If you truly are working and looking for the good of the Palestinian people, you have a responsibility not just to shout slogans, not just to yell epithets like from the river to the sea. You have a responsibility to understand the reality of the facts on the ground. Without question, there are many, many peaceful Palestinians, Muslim and Christian, who just want a future for their children, just want a future of peace. There's no question that that peaceful, innocent population exists. However, the facts on the ground are that that population is probably much less than we are led to believe, because the West has not done the hard work of holding Fatah and Hamas accountable for what education is passed on to the next generation. It is time for us to become educated on the deep realities and complexities of what is being faced in Israel and in the hearts of the Palestinian people. I want to invite you today to get involved, come deeper, get closer to this situation, get the Watchman on the Wall curriculum, and begin your step to becoming an educated, informed intercessor as we look into what is it really going to take for there to be peace in Jerusalem.